We are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode, I believe it's 140 of Our Real Addiction. It's just me today. Unfortunately, Miguel and I just had different schedules, so we just agreed that I would just come in really quickly and just do a shorter episode. We just got box office, and obviously the Writers Guild of America, they reached a deal. I'm going to be talking a little bit briefly about it, and we have Miguel and I will go into depth to it on next week's episode. So I'm just going to go over it. And then we'll get into our thoughts and really just how it affects how projects are going to start to revamp, because really quickly the SAG-AFTRA is still also on strike, so we'll kind of go into that. However, though, we do have a review of The Creator coming out on Friday, so that comes out Thursday night. I'm seeing it tonight. Wednesday at the time of this recording, and Miguel's seeing it tomorrow night. So we're going to be recording tomorrow night as well, and we're going to have that fresh for you on Friday for The Creator. A Creator spoiler review. It is by the director of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. That's Gareth Edwards, and we're super excited to see what he does, because a lot of the cinematography looks very similar to Rogue One, so we're super excited about it, just because the cinematography looks great, and the early reviews for it for the majority of people have been liking it. Also, too, if you already haven't, follow us on social media, on our social medias. Follow us on Instagram at Our Real Pod, and follow us on Instagram at Our Real Addiction, and on TikTok also at Our Real Addiction, and on Twitter at Our Real Pod. If you're listening to this, we do have exclusive episodes, exclusive YouTube episodes, I should say, Movie News Monday and TV Inquiry. I know we haven't been able to get any episodes out, but they are going to return very, very soon. Just bear with us. We do apologize. I know we promise more content more frequently, and I feel like obviously we've gotten more content, but we got a spoiler review coming up on Friday, and we're going to get Movie News Monday and TV Inquiry restarted up again. But we're just going to jump right into it for the box office. So coming in at number 5 is Barbie. It made $3.2 million. And it comes in, like I said, at number 5. Hasn't moved. It's still at $1.4 billion. 631 of that being domestic, and 797 of that being international. So obviously, it's not gonna change. It had the limited IMAX release where it had additional footage. I didn't get a chance to check it out. I know Miguel did. But yeah, it's been in theaters 9 weeks, 68 days to be exact. So yeah, I mean, awesome box office run. Same thing with Oppenheimer, which isn't on the top of the list. Coming in at number 4 is The Equalizer number 3, making $4.8 million, bringing its grand total up to $149 million. 82 of that being domestic, and 67 million of that being international. Still haven't seen it. I know Miguel saw it and he really, really enjoyed it. Coming in at number 3 is A Haunting in Venice, and that made $6.3 million, and bringing the grand total to $72 million, 26 million being domestic, and 46 million of that being international. I still haven't had the chance to see it. I really do, just because I do like this film series. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen Death on the Nile. I know I don't need to necessarily to understand this film, but I do want to see it just because it is the second film in this franchise. Coming in at number 2 is The Expendables with $8 million even. That brings its grand total up to $12 million. 9 million of that being domestic, 10 million of that being domestic, and 2 million of that being international. It's only been out 5 days. I don't think it's going to have a really great run. Despite it having a pretty star-studded cast. I know it's a lot of the returning cast is in this film. Obviously, Sylvester Stallone is in it, and they obviously have added Megan Fox. But I know the majority of the cast is back. But yeah, I mean, I haven't got the chance to see it. But yeah, that comes in at number 2. And coming in at number 1 is The Nun 2, making $8.6 million. Worldwide, making $206 million, 70 million of that being domestic and 335 of that being international. It is at number one. I do see the creator kind of pushing it out of the spotlight. I don't think this is going to live. The Nun 2 is going to live too much longer at the number one, despite it being out for, I think, like 2-3 weeks now. Obviously, A Haunting in Venice hasn't been able to dethrone it, or even The Equalizer. Yeah, it's been out 2 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks this Friday. But, yeah, so that's going to do it for the box office. I'm just going to read very loosely off of this Los Angeles Times article that's written by Ryan Fondner. He went on to write that the Writers Guild of America on Tuesday disclosed the deals of a tentative deal it secured with major Hollywood studios to end the strike that has lasted for nearly 5 months. A 7-page summary document which was distributed to the Writers Guild of America's 11,500 film and TV writer members includes increased wages and residuals, as well as language addressing the union's demand for minimum staff and television writers' rooms, payments based on the success of streaming shows, and protection against the use of artificial intelligence. It was a deal which writers fought hard for. The WGA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which represents the big entertainment companies on the labor front, reached the pact on Sunday after 146 days of picketing and marching that virtually shuttered movies and scripted television productions. The writers' walkout began May 2nd, and the actors presented SAG-AFTRA, who remain on strike, hit the picket line in mid-July. The Writers Guild of America's West Board and East Council approved the deal, which was recommended unanimously by the Guild's negotiating committee. Now it will be presented to the union's membership for a ratification vote. The Writers Guild of America said that the strike would officially end Wednesday. So today, last night at 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, it officially ended. So at 12 a.m. Wednesday morning, it was all productions were immediately approved to start again in terms of their writings room. Ratification is expected to take place in October. The Writers Guild of America said the total value of the deal was $233 million, up from the $86 million that the AMPTP had offered. This contract won with the power of member solidarity, and our union siblings over 148-day strike incorporates meaningful gains and protection for writers in every segment of the memberships, the union said in the document. So it's obviously higher pay. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to break down the higher pay and also the streaming bonuses. And then we'll get into the other stuff, the artificial intelligence and the minimum staffing with Miguel. So the higher pay, so the 3-year film and TV contract wages by 5% in the 5th year and 4% in the 2nd year and 3.5% in year 5. Select residuals based on the minimums will get lower increases or single increases, the guild said. So this is really, really cool because we heard about it at the beginning. They weren't asking for much. They were asking for just 3% more of what they were being paid. They weren't actually asking for, hey, I want like 50% more than what I'm making. No, they asked for 3%. I'm so glad that they were able to negotiate we're able to get more. Like they get a 5% pay increase in year 1, and then 4 in year 2, and then 3.5 in year 3. Obviously, this strike is probably going to last a little longer. Not strike is going to last a little longer, but this contract is probably going to last a little longer just because when we're looking at it, probably about the 1.5 year mark, they're probably going to come back in and renegotiate with the Writers Guild of America. Hopefully, at that point, we will actually fully see TV and film productions actually be back to their normal outgoing, where people are actually going to the movies. mind you, I'll be entirely honest. I haven't been to the movies in like a month and a half since the Ninja Turtles movie came out, so I'm going to for the first time since to see the creator tonight for the first time in like a month and a half. So I don't really know how films have been doing in terms of actual traction in the movie theater that I'm used to going to. But I'm glad to see that there's also, that the residual bases and the minimums will get lower increases or single increases. So like if one specific, one specific writer works on one specific TV show, and let's say they write that TV show like by themselves, or they write the entire first season by themselves for whatever reason, there's a chance that they may be getting a little more than the 3% or the 3.5% or even the 4 or 5% that they're getting, mainly because you don't have to pay an entire writer's room. So there will be funding to obviously pay them more, which I'm very glad to hear, just because obviously the writers are the backbones of these shows. These people who write these shows, whether we like them or not, are ultimately, or excuse me, not that whether we like them or not, whether we like what they're writing or not, is something that it's so easy to look over, because it's so easy to get, we get so fixated on the editing and the cinematography and the way everything looks and the visual effects and the post editing, all that we forget that there are people who are actually writing these lines. When we have memorable lines, such as Thanos saying "I am inevitable," or Iron Man saying "I am," and I am Iron Man, or even like that's America's ass in Avengers Endgame. People actually come up with that stuff. But even stuff like when the whole in Star Wars, in the Kenobi show, when Anakin says Anakin is gone, I am what remains, people are coming up with that originality themselves. And yes, it's just like we remember a lot more quotes than we remember cinematography and editing. Well, yes, obviously there are some cases where obviously we remember how bad a show is for the editing. Looking at all the CW Arrowverse in the last years of their lives, of their runs, I should say. So it's just it's so good to see that the writers are getting respect and the pay that they deserve. Moving on to the streaming bonuses. So the contract establishes a system of providing bonuses to writers based on the viewership of the streaming show. This is awesome, because if your show gets booted onto Netflix, and there's a lot more to go over, this is awesome because they're going to see really big pay bumps when a new show gets put onto Netflix and people are waiting to watch them. Like, for example, Suits had like a 233% increase on their viewership when it hit Netflix. Like, people were watching that show. It was the most popular TV show on Netflix for like a month and a half, and I want to say it's still very, very popular. I haven't had the opportunity to go and watch it yet. It is on my watch list, but we heard the writers come out and say we haven't seen a dime of that. We haven't seen any residuals from that, because of the fact that we are getting treated very, very poorly. We heard about the writer that wrote the episode that was in Daredevil, when Daredevil was in She-Hulk, that he received like a $43 like residual for that episode. That was like the talk of the town for the week that episode came out, because we were all excited that Charlie Cox was back in the back playing Matt Murdock / Daredevil in an MCU project. We were all stupidly excited for that, to see that people like him will get better residuals. To move on, it says the writers already received residuals from shows made for streaming services, but the WGA wanted to establish a system that would reward subscribers if their work drew huge viewerships on Netflix. For example, the way compensation typically worked on streaming services is that the producers get paid upfront but don't get to participate in the wins. The guild sought to change that. In the service of this goal, the WGA wanted streamers to be more transparent with viewership data, and a central issue in the strike. So yeah, that was one of the biggest things, is that we did hear that streaming services were lying about how popularity it was. So like, for example, they may have reported that Suits had a 233% increase in viewership, but for all we know, it could have been a lot more. It goes on to say the contract allows the WGA to receive confidential viewership metrics for the original streaming show based on the hours viewed. Aggregated data can be shared. So I think this is absolutely great again, just because now they're gonna have there's there's gonna be no, oh well, it got about 100 million views in its first week. No, like they're gonna have access to the definitive numbers of what the viewership actually was. I don't know how this works in terms of like, we're gonna give you it when the show, like for example, if a show gets ported to Netflix or like Disney Plus, like for example, like I'm like, I think because like the biggest thing I think of is like, okay, when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy got ported into Disney Plus, and I'm sure people were watching it, just because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where they were prior to that. If they were on somewhere else, I don't know how I don't know what specific streaming service they were on prior to Netflix, or excuse me, prior to Disney Plus. So when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy got ported to Disney Plus, I'm sure there was an increase of viewership and an increase of popularity, and probably even some more subscriptions, because they knew they had that original trilogy on there. And even like Andrew Garfield's, I'm pretty sure there was some excitement. Then eventually Tobey Maguire's went on there, so I'm pretty sure that there was an increase of obviously viewership, increases subscriptions, just because you kind of knew where it was. Hey, I can watch all these films for $6 a month. I'm definitely going to be watching 9 films in a span of 30 days, or I'm going to be able to watch one, or two a week. Like, I feel like, there definitely there's appeal to that. And I feel like when it comes to streaming services, obviously they were able to have increases in viewership, increases in subscriptions, due to the fact that they were bringing on new content. But I think it's great that they were able to negotiate, just so much more. They absolutely deserve it. Absolutely, absolutely deserve it. And I think I'm gonna save the minimum staffing and the artificial intelligence. We'll get to that on next week's episode of our Addiction. But again, I think it's just awesome that these viewers are getting the respect that they deserve. I think our writers are getting the respect that they deserve, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are writing these 20 episode TV shows, these even these 10 episode TV shows, the ones that are an hour long, like writing. They say it's about a minute a page, so it's just like when you write an hour episode, that's 60 minutes. That's 60 pages worth of content. When your show is 40 compared to the 60, that's 20 less pages of needing a show, especially on like regular television when the shows are only about 40 to 45 minutes. So it's just like those who are going to be writing longer shows, or even those who have to write short or something like that. It's just like it's great to see that they're getting the respect that they deserve, because obviously they, again, like I say, I think our writers are the backbones of Hollywood, just because a lot of their work always gets overlooked in terms of recognition, but we always remember the lines. We always remember the lines. It's just like we quote so many films. So many films today, and well, us specifically, maybe not everybody, but it's just like here, it's just like we're always making references to films, typically to a line that was said in the film, so it's just so glad to see that their work is going to be, appreciated more. And it's just like, it is unfortunate it took this long, close to 5 months to really strike a deal that was worth their while and worth their writing and worth their success and hard work. It's just like, the thing about Hollywood is like, something like that doesn't sleep. It's just like they go in until that show is finished. They write until they're happy with the product. It's just like it goes through an original write, then it goes through, if they have to do reshoots, they have to do that means they have to do rewrites. So there's so much that goes into it more than just that, hey, they write the show and it's done. It's just like even myself in school, like when I've started, when I've shot films, it's just like how many times I've written stuff and I've went back and rewrote it. It's just like, if that's taking me, let's just say it takes me 2 to 3 hours to write this, 10-minute shot, you can only imagine what it's taking all of these writers in Hollywood to write a full-length feature film, or a full a television for a full run of its season or even multiple seasons, because nowadays shows are automatically getting are automatically getting put a greenlit for 2 seasons to start with, and then they want to see where it goes, so it's just like, and but I also think of again, all these popular shows, Stranger Things, original shows like that, which it's just like that is in production for years. That is in production for years, so it's just like, sorry about that. Was getting a call there, but that was in production for years. So each season, the older they got, the more the seasons took longer to produce. When I say the older they get, I was talking about the actors, but it's just like, it's so fantastic to see our writers get the respect that they deserve. I think that is going to do it for this episode. Again, guys, if you already haven't, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we do have YouTube exclusives. If you're listening to this podcast, you are missing out on TV Inquiry and Movie News Monday. As always, I'm Adam, and this was episode, I believe, 140 of our Revolution. We'll catch you in the next episode, or we'll catch you on Friday. Sic Parvis Magna. Bye-bye.